back, everybody, to basically an F1 podcast. I'm your host, Dan Mendez.
And I'm JJ, and I'm sorry, I'm my first time today here, but I enjoyed today's race. It was wonderful.
So it's Chris couldn't make it today, so my dad's filling in for him.
Yeah.
Yep. My dad occasionally dabbles in Formula One, so I decided today to have him on the podcast with me. So excuse his
my attitude
beginnerness.
as beginning is.
Yes, but it should be fun. And this was a good race, I think, for him to watch to do the podcast with, because a lot of stuff happened. A lot of things happened. It was a big race for everyone involved, for the championships, the constructors, and the drivers' championship. And it was a hot one. It's hot today outside.
Yeah, it was.
It was hot in Spain. It was 98 degrees, 120 degrees on the track. All teams seem to be going for the soft tires or the medium tires all race. So that was the main thing. But the Spanish Grand Prix is known as a bit of an anomaly, though, in Formula One. I'm talking strictly to you and to viewers who are new to Formula One. I know there's a lot of them. This is the track where a lot of the preseason testing happens.
Right.
So the teams have a lot of data on this track. And so this is usually when they start to bring out a lot of the upgrades and stuff like that to test them, because they know this track and how it behaves already. So a lot of their attention can focus on the upgrades. They know how their car performs on the track because they've already been here.
So what amazes me the most was the change in tires.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of changing the tires constantly, and from hard to mediums and mediums, they almost everybody ends up into soft tires.
Yeah.
At the end of the race. I mean, it was nice to watch
Mm-hmm.
them changing all the tires, and all the action goes around, and it was very, very nice.
It really added it because they were using softer compounds. They were mostly running three stops. Three stop was the strategy for the race, I think, today. I think that was apparent with Mick Schumacher, who was running pretty decent. He was in the points all race. He qualified 10th. And pretty much stayed there all race. But when that advantage of the three stop started coming in, people started stopping for the third time.
Yeah.
He decided to stay out. His tires didn't hold on, and
No, I mean.
yeah, he ended up finishing.
Yeah, that's actually his fault. He should have stepped out before.
Yeah, he ended up finishing 14th.
14th. So, and another point I enjoy seeing, it was Hamilton going from right from the bottom into finishing fourth place.
That's right.
Was awesome seeing
Yeah,
to jump up into the game again. So.
Yeah, that was actually really nice to see. We saw Hamilton start pretty well, actually. One of the best starts of the season in P6, which is weird to say for the 7-time world champion starting P6. But after Mercedes' troubles this season, P6 is actually not that bad. He was starting just behind Sergio Perez in P5 and his teammate in P4, George Russell in P4. But a little tangle with Kevin Magnussen in the Haas in turn 4, lap 1. Saw him have a puncture and fall to dead last. He was right at the
dead
back.
last, yeah.
Yeah.
that tire puncture, yeah, was a big highlight of the race at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it was good too as well to see Bottas and what's his name fighting for the third Sainz, yeah.
Bottas was in third place.
In third place, but then again,
Russell
it was a good
took
fight.
it,
yeah, Russell,
Yeah.
and Russell was lead. I mean, it was good. It was good to watch.
No, he had a good weekend this weekend.
He had a good weekend. It was Charles. It was sadly actually to see Charles go off so soon.
Yep.
And I mean, I didn't expect them to be so soon, but to retire so soon in a race.
Yeah. Well, it was just before halfway. It was, I believe, lap 27. Charles was clearly dominating not just the race but the weekend. He was fastest in all 3 practice sessions. He got pole position. And at a track like Spain, there's a 73% chance or something
So
that
I would say,
if you start first, you are going to finish first. And he was very much
yeah, it was very sadly to see them
Yeah,
retired. I mean, a quarter of the race he retired. I mean,
mhm.
for I believe was a malfunction in a car. But yeah, it's always sad to see someone leading and with a great speed, with a great race, and retired. You know.
Yeah. That was a bit surprising. That was a bit of an announcer's curse this weekend. It seems like every time they talked about somebody, they went off or they got overtaken or they would overtake somebody. A good example of it was Charles Leclerc. They literally started talking about him, and then the camera cut to him going slowly and getting passed by
Oh, yeah.
everybody. So yeah, not a great weekend for him. He's finished in the top two in every race except for Imola this year.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt that he'll be fine moving forward in the season.
Moving forward, you will be fine.
Right.
On this in the season, he probably have to change, do a lot of changes in the car. I would assume so.
Yeah. Well, this is the first time we saw Ferrari really have issues with that. So
yeah.
it could have just been the heat that they weren't used to yet. I don't believe we've had a hot race this hot yet. So these are new cars. They don't really know too much about them.
Yeah, but we have. I mean, we haven't talked about the spin-outs. We witnessed the spin-outs.
Yeah,
on the same curve, on the same spot.
Within 2 laps of each
Within
other.
2 laps of each other,
Yeah.
and it's like I would say most people. They were talking about there was the tire issue.
Yeah.
I mean the wind
Mhm.
issue, but I think it had a lot to do with the tires as well.
You think so?
Because after that, that's when they start getting to medium, from mediums to soft, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of more action. After that, more progression into change tires
Yeah.
in everybody.
I'm sure we're gonna hear more about that. I know when we saw Carlos go off, Carlos has been off track. He's had some moments the last couple Grand Prix. He hasn't been having a great time at Ferrari this season, and so it unfortunately didn't come as so much of a surprise when he went off. However, just 2 laps later, out of second place came Max Verstappen, who spun literally
Spun
nearly
the same way.
the same exact way. So I think that saved Carlos a little bit of face. You know, it wasn't necessarily
It
his
did.
fault.
It did. Yeah.
And Carlos finished up well in 4th place. He did really, really well to recover Ferrari. But Ferrari have had 2 weekends now, I think, where they could have walked away with a really decent result, and that was Imola and this race.
Yeah.
So I think that they have some work to do. I think the teammate dynamic is there, but both cars need to be next to each other.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They do need to be next.
A lot like we see with Max and Sergio, Verstappen and Perez.
Right.
You know, Ferrari can have that too, as long as they're next to each other. And
Yeah.
Carlos just needs to get that Ferrari next to Leclerc more often.
Leclerc, yeah.
And they can work together. But so that was lap 1, or first couple laps rather. Another big thing of the Grand Prix was Max Verstappen's DRS,
Yes.
the rear wing.
Not working. And
I remember when the race was starting, everyone was going to the grid. Red Bull were the last people really to leave the pits because they were fixing his rear wing. That was an issue.
Yeah.
And before the race, Verstappen was asked about the rear wing. He said he wasn't worried about it at all. But as soon as DRS was enabled, we saw issues where some laps he would come by, press the button, it would open just fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and then the next lap he would come, press the button, it wouldn't open.
Wouldn't open. Yeah.
Press the button again,
Now
and
they
then it would open
had
close.
issues, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big issue. Not just because the car's slower that way.
Slower that way, but yeah, they have to correct that and make
Well,
sure that
it's
it
a
works.
safety issue. The reason
So,
why
yeah.
the reason why DRS is a thing is because you're able to open and close it. If the DRS is open throughout the lap, the car has significantly less
Less
rear end downforce.
rear end force, yeah.
Yeah. So it's really important that not only that opens correctly, but it also closes correctly.
Right.
And safely. So it's great that we saw Max do well all race. He was able to keep up with George Russell, who was in second place, and then eventually in the lead.
He was actually aiming to win.
Yeah, no, he stayed.
He stayed pretty good, in pretty good status to win. I mean, he had a good speed, a good race, and at first I thought he would stay there instead of losing a little bit of ground.
Right.
But Verstappen was faster, and he took advantage of what was there for him again.
Right.
Once again.
And that was Sergio Perez. Great strategy by Red Bull for using both their cars. And strategizing the pit stops so that Sergio could hold position for Max, essentially, so that Max could come in, change his tires, and then catch it back up to Sergio, and then Sergio gave him the place.
Yeah, of course. yeah, no choice.
There's no
there's no choice about that. When they started getting neck and neck with each other,
that's really, Red Bull though.
One has to stay behind. So
yeah, that's a big controversial, I think, point of the weekend that I think is going to be seen is it is still a little bit too early in the season to start. Max obviously.
Of course, I mean, he will get the lead. I mean, he has been winning.
That's true.
Most of the races,
That's true. He has won.
He has a good spot, and he's a cold-blood driver. He fights for what he thinks and what he believes.
Right.
That's my opinion. And he's a great driver to me. I mean, watching race after race, and he does pretty good.
Yeah. No, he does really well. And while I think Perez was a bit ticked off by that decision. Not once, but twice, letting him through for the lead of the race or for position.
Right.
He was a bit ticked off, but Max was, even without DRS, quicker than Perez. And fresher tires as well at one point. So I can see that. He doesn't have DRS, keep him behind. He's slower.
I think the issue was he took his place.
He clearly wasn't slower.
He's not slower.
He was the faster car.
It was the faster car, and it has also to do with the time that he changed his tires. He changed the tires at the right time, and with the right moment. Right. And
I think that's just an internal thing that Red Bull should look at.
Yeah.
I wouldn't personally bank on that. How should I say this? I wouldn't personally want that to be the case every weekend. I wouldn't want Sergio to be the guy that just hands the place over.
I'm sure. Pretty soon. I mean, you probably see Verstappen in second, and who knows, and Sergio in first.
Yeah.
I mean, he holds a pretty good place. And being both from Red Bull. I would assume
it's internal.
It's internal. At some point, Sergio Perez, we'll see him probably in first place. I would say.
Yeah, no, he's a really good driver. He was leading the race today, and I think he had the car to win the race. I think his viewpoint was, they're already having a 1-2. Why do I have to give the lead to Max? Why can't I just keep going? And I think,
but that's the internal.
It's an internal thing they got to figure out.
Internal business that they have together. So
Mercedes still has done that in the past, especially with Bottas and Hamilton.
Right.
Red Bull themselves, a long time ago, with Vettel and Webber have done it. The infamous Multi-21 incident. It's a big deal when you ask a teammate to let the other one pass. It's sort of saying, well, he's faster than you. And the main thing, I mean, you're competing with everyone out there, but the only guy that really matters for you is the guy that has the same car as you.
Same car as you, yeah.
Right.
They have the same car. I mean, they're very competitive drivers. So, that, like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised seeing Perez in first place the next race.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. I mean, it's Monaco. Now, Monaco is Charles Leclerc's home race.
Home, yeah.
And he has a bit of a history of not finishing it. It's a bit of a meme.
History is still there, so
yeah, it's a bit of a meme. For the last, 2018 didn't finish with Alfa Romeo. 2019 didn't finish in a Ferrari. We didn't go in 2020. 2021 he got pole position and then crashed in qualifying, but then because of that crash, wasn't able to start.
Right.
So, is 2021,
It's
22,
22, let's see.
any different? Well, last week we got a little taste of Monaco, where they actually run every year a historic race with older race cars. So you have gentleman drivers as well as up and coming. You have all sorts of drivers, former Formula One drivers, driving cars from the 70s, the 80s, 90s.
Oh,
So-
might be interested to watch.
Yeah, no, it is
Very
really
nice
interesting.
to watch. Interesting to watch
Right.
when they come into different cars and
Right.
you see the same driver with a
Right.
different car. It's amazing.
hmm Well, Charles Leclerc got the chance to drive Niki Lauda's, I believe, 1973. I'm not good with years, but it was his 1973 car, I believe, or 72. And he had a brake failure going I believe, into Rascasse and spun the car around and just backed it into the wall.
Into the wall. Wow.
So everyone's going crazy because he can't even finish that Monaco Grand
that
Prix.
Monaco.
So everyone's a bit holding their breath for next weekend because after this weekend he is no longer leading the championship. It's now Max Verstappen leading the championship, and Monaco is a bit of a processional race. It doesn't really offer a lot of overtaking opportunities. In fact, a lot of people like watching qualifying more than the race because if you do well in qualifying, odds are you
I'll tell you, they do a good race.
do
yeah.
a good race. So, I'm quite excited to see next week what Charles Leclerc can do. Heartbreaking for him because, I mean, he's done really well all season. He's only put
I mean,
a
and
foot
it
wrong
looks
once.
like he starts very well every race.
He comes
And he
yeah.
doesn't finishes the races or something else happens during the race for him.
Yeah, no, he's entered the race weekends in a really good mindset. And a lot of that has to do with the car that he has. We saw Carlos Sainz beat him last year, after only being at the team one year. And so this year he has a better car. He's gotten the year started really well with, pole position, a win, finishing on the podium regularly, fighting with Max Verstappen, the reigning world champion. So
Well, probably that all has to do with he has to get used to the car.
he has a good car and he's gotten used to it. That's the only issue we've seen was in Imola, and that was him just being greedy.
Greedy,
He was in a decent position. He was on for a podium. Max and Sergio were doing really well, but he wanted to get that extra point for the fastest lap,
for the fastest laps.
and he just clipped the curb and spun the car around. Managed to keep going, but only finished sixth. I believe.
Sixth place. Oh wow.
So
Yeah, when you're leading and you end up in sixth place, or
Yeah.
it's
so
like the same thing I saw Hamilton today. It was beautiful. It was always in the very last. I mean, right, almost the very last 18th place they got,
mhm.
and finishing in fourth place was amazing for him.
Well, no, he finished.
And so does Alonso. He got I think ninth place.
Yeah, no, he finished fourth. He would have. No, I'm sorry. Finished fifth. He would have finished fourth
Fourth, yeah.
if it weren't for the issues at the end.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
the lift and coast issues. They had a Mercedes reported a water leak,
A water leak
In the
on it,
engine.
yeah.
so he had to lift and coast to keep the engine cool to avoid a breakdown on the second to last lap. So I think that was a well calculated move by him. I think the Lewis Hamilton of a couple years ago may have just kept going to defend the position.
and bust probably the
Yeah,
car.
yeah.
In the
But
process.
we got to see Carlos Sainz come just one position away from the podium. Best finish at home so far, so I think good for him. Also had a moment in turn 4, dropped a bunch of positions, and he was able to get almost a podium.
A podium,
on
yes.
his home race.
Yes, on his home
Doing
race.
better than Fernando Alonso,
Who
has won this race.
Yeah, I agree with
several
you.
times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah,
So-
but it was good to see him. I mean, back and forth, and I mean they went all the way down, and they still come up
Mm-hmm.
their way
Yeah.
up to the first 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Fernando Alonso, I believe you just mentioned Fernando, starting from 20th, he had a bad qualifying.
Yes.
Qualified 17th, and decided to use that bad qualifying to change engines.
Engines, yeah.
Yeah, use this as one of the times this year that they have to change engines, and you occur a penalty when you change an engine.
Right.
Yeah,
but finish ninth to me is
exactly. He started 20th.
Still a good
exactly
a good position for him with all the penalties that he got. Well, all the stuff that he got going.
Right.
He still finishes in with the first 10.
Well, I mean, the way I see it is, he started out of position, sure. Everyone will say, "Oh, well, he started out of position for the car." The Alpine isn't a 20th starter. it's it's a midfield starter.
Yeah.
But he managed to finish in position. If he qualified in ninth, that would be pretty good.
You probably end up being in a second or third. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Exactly. I think the gap between the first 4 or 5 and everyone else is quite big.
Yeah.
But I mean, you do make a point. If he started where he ended, and did really well, he could have been on for a potential podium.
Well, to me, it has to work. It has something to do on him to do working on his positions, on his qualifications.
Yeah.
That's what he's. I mean, that's my point of seeing him going to succeed is to go into trying to qualify better.
Yeah, he did really well in Australia. He was actually on for potentially pole. It's optimistic to say that he was going to get pole in an Alpine, but in Australia he was doing really well, and unfortunately he did go off on his fast lap. Still got into 10th place and did, I think, relatively decent in the race if I remember correctly. But he's quick, and he's 40 now. He's the oldest driver on the grid, I believe.
I'm a great believer that he also, as old as you get in that field, he will get a lot of experience.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lot of tricks.
Yeah,
tricks that they have learned over the years.
Exactly.
In that situation, in that field. You
have to see, this is his home track, sure, but how many times has he gone around it? How many times has he gone around all the tracks we're doing this year?
Yeah. But then all he has to do is the weather conditions that they race in it, because today was a very hot day.
Yeah.
And
that played a lot into it.
It plays, always play. I mean, probably next week in Monaco could be rain. Who knows?
Could be.
And it's not an easy task too. In terms of tires, they will have to change into the better grip tires.
Right. Well, the rain is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter how much power your car makes then, because it's all about just controlling. The car.
But that's just a different race as well.
Well, I mean, Monaco is a different race. We saw last year Lewis had, I think, the fastest car, if not one of. I mean, the only other one was the Red Bull, the Honda. But he finished in 7th.
In 7th place.
And he qualified in, I think, 8th.
8th.
So something like that. And, while his teammate did slightly better, the Monaco is such a different track. I mean, Monaco as a country is the size of Central Park.
Right.
So the track can only be so big.
Yeah, but the question is, what I'm trying to make a point is the weather always plays a big role on how they race.
Right.
In terms of changing the tires, using the right tires, and so on.
Well, we usually see like 1-stop races, maybe 2-stop. This was a 3-stop race, potentially 4-stop race.
Yeah, because they constantly had
they're softer compounds.
Yeah, because the weather, it was very hot, and they started getting punctures. You see a lot of stuff blistering around, and so they had an issue with the weather being hot for sure.
No, it was a really big thing.
But seeing everybody, the way everybody moves, and the way most of the drivers reacted to it, was a great race after all.
No, I think it was great. I think the Spanish Grand Prix has a reputation, again, for you and people, first time F1 people. It has a bit of a reputation of being a bit boring because the drivers know the track so well and the teams know the track so well. It doesn't produce necessarily great racing because they don't tend to make mistakes because they've been around it hundreds and hundreds of times.
Hundreds of times, yeah.
I mean, you usually do hundreds of laps in testing. So this year, like any of these drivers have gone around this track quite a lot.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah. So mistakes usually don't happen. The only thing you may see is something with the upgrades kind of shaking things up. In the beginning of the week, Aston Martin had side pods that resembled the Red Bull side pods quite a bit, but that didn't end up helping them at all. So
yeah, but as you say that they go over the tracks numerous times for practicing and all that.
Right.
I would say that they also get so confident
That's true.
with the track that sometimes that's why mistakes happen.
Yeah. No, that's true. They are going around hundreds of times
Yeah.
by themselves. They're not really racing. They're just going around collecting miles.
They probably will get very comfortable with the track, and sometimes too much confidence. It causes problems like the spin outs we witness, and
That's true.
all that
Yeah.
kind of deal,
I
so.
mean, if it was in fact caused by the wind, I feel like that's something that is always playing on a Formula One driver's mind, is because the cars are so dependent on the air around it.
here, yeah.
That confidence could have something to do with that. Just being really confident in how fast I could take this corner, and then there's a big gust of wind, then you can't take the corner anymore.
No, I mean, yeah, the spin out,
Right.
the spin outs cannot avoid
Versus
that
on-
because the
versus
car's
on-
up in the air. So
Versus on a track like Miami, they've never really driven on it before. They probably would be a bit more cautious
yeah,
because they don't really know it too well.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, confidence plays a big role on these races because they go over and over the track so many times
Mhm.
that they probably get so much. Like Paris, that's from there, it's hometown,
Right.
and all
No,
that.
well, Paris is Mexican.
No, that's
Science.
Carlos Science. I'm sorry. It probably that's the the course he did most of it,
Mhm.
most of the times in his life as a racer.
That's
He
true.
probably had so much confidence on it, and
Well, speaking of confidence, I mean, we talked a little bit about Alonso. It's his home track. He's won here a couple times. I know Vettel has won here a couple times. I know Hamilton's won here, I believe, 6 times. Verstappen got his first win here. I think that when you get a win somewhere like Spain, it could produce a certain kind of confidence to where we did see Alonso do really well.
yeah,
He was a race winner here. We saw Hamilton do well. He's won many races here.
Right.
So
Like I said, it's normal for those people because they get confidence and they on the track.
Mhm.
I mean,
Monaco will be interesting to see with these new cars, because you can follow a lot closer with these new cars, and they're a little bit smaller. The average speed around Monaco is a lot less than a track like this, and a track like this, we saw people going off, we saw people being able to go a little wide. You can't really do that in Monaco. It's just walls.
just walls. So
Right.
it's a much narrow.
Right. It punishes mistakes. You have to really pay attention.
Otherwise, you end up in the wall.
Exactly. Yeah. Or in the ocean.
In the wall of the ocean.
Yeah.
Either or.
Going through the top 10, obviously we have the podium 3. We have Verstappen, Perez, and Russell. Russell grabbing his second podium for Mercedes, 3rd podium of all time. I count it as his second because his first one was kind of a whatever.
Well, no, Russell did good.
Russell did good. He was honestly, I think if Mercedes...
He's trying to defend Mercedes title.
Mercedes. They've been doing better than they've been. I mean, every Mercedes car has sort of been doing better, other than Williams. But I think the upgrades they brought to Spain definitely worked. They have a bit more straight line speed. They fixed the porpoising, and Russell was able to defend from Max, even though Max, yes, didn't have DRS. He was really putting on moves on Max.
They didn't have DRS in the beginning, so I didn't know.
And then it did get better.
Get better for a while.
Yeah.
At the end of it.
Yeah. Everyone seems to be in position. I mean, Valtteri Bottas was running 4th for a while there and 5th, and then finished 6th. He's sort of been in that spectrum. He's another driver that's sort of been finishing.
Yeah, but, I mean, Bottas is one of them. as well that I
Used to be Mercedes.
used to be Mercedes, and I see them that he's probably gonna go move up the ladder a little bit more.
You think?
I see him with potential to be probably in second place.
I can see him.
I want to see him with the crew that it is in right now. I don't see him going into first place.
He is a
but,
bit, yeah. He's
still a little bit slow for that.
Alfa Romeo. No, he's not slow. It's just Alfa Romeo is a bit of a sister team to Ferrari. So they use a Ferrari engine. And they're very much sort of a team that Ferrari put their younger drivers in.
Right.
Bottas was sort of a driver without a seat, and he found one at Alfa Romeo when Kimi Raikkonen left.
But I mean, he's doing good. I mean, you see them moving up, and I mean if he gets a little bit more confident and more experience, I'll see.
He's very consistent.
He's very consistent. I would see him moving at least a third or to second or third place.
Yeah. I think the only downside to him being an Alpha, other than being a bit slower than Red Bull and Mercedes and Ferrari, is that, well, Mercedes on a bad day, but I think the only downside is his teammate, Zhou Guanyu, who retired from similar issues as Leclerc, both Ferrari-powered cars, Alfa Romeo and Ferrari. Similar issues, they both retired around the same lap, 28 and 27. Guanyu Zhou is not bad. He scored points on his debut race. Not easy to do.
Yeah, we have to think about it as well. If something happened to Paris, for instance, a crash could happen at any moment. Bottas has a space to move. If they retire,
I don't think something that drastic needs to happen.
You have to think about bad stuff that could happen as well.
Right.
And he could move up. I mean, I'm not favoring on Bottas, but just to simulate what it could potentially happen. You know, these are the three big guys, and he's in sixth place today. So it could well happen in one race that he's going to finish in third.
No, it doesn't really need to take much. I think at Alfa Romeo, he could potentially get a podium, no problem. He's right there. All it needs is like a wet race or a crazy safety car where
like I said,
Max is compromised.
All it has to do is one of those three top cars has something compromising.
I mean, we saw like with Sergio, he was leading in Saudi Arabia.
You see the McClure today. He's retired as part of the race. It could happen to Perez or
Red Bull,
to Verstappen. You know,
Red Bull and Red Bull, every team really, honestly, have had reliability issues this year because the car is so new to them. It is genuinely possible to see Bottas up there on a podium or even a win. Potentially. It's honestly possible for any one of these drivers.
Anyone. I mean, even Hamilton. I mean, Hamilton is a
7-time world champion.
World champion. So he's gonna
over 100 wins.
So he's up there too. He was going after Bottas as well. So I'm pretty sure that he wants to go to move up the ladder one more time.
Right. So here's my thing with Bottas, and I'm gonna lay it out. I think now that he's with a Ferrari-powered team, he's outside of the Mercedes family. Formula One sort of runs like this. You sort of stay with an engine kind of thing. So, like, with Russell, he started with Williams, and they're powered by Mercedes. And so he moved up to Mercedes. So now Bottas has sort of jumped the Mercedes family and has gone to the Ferrari family, and he races for Alfa Romeo, who are powered by Ferrari. So it could potentially be, and no slack to Carlos Sainz. I hope he gets his stuff together. But I could potentially see Sainz. I mean, he has a contract. Everyone has a contract. But I could potentially see Bottas in a Ferrari. It's not too crazy to imagine.
Yes. I mean, he wants to get into the family.
He is in the family. He's
already in the family. He wants to get more into it. So. Yeah.
But he has...
And he has the potential for it.
He has some competition. He has Mick Schumacher, whose dad won 4 titles.
Of course, yes.
5 titles.
That comes
Ferrari.
into the blood, so...
5 titles with Ferrari. So Ferrari are kind of keen to get Mick in there. But Mick still has some ways to go. There's also a lot of junior drivers coming up that.
But I think with Mick, I think he's a little too young yet to
Yeah.
to to run.
Yeah.
I mean, no experience yet.
Well, he's at Haas. It's a good playground.
It's
for
a good
him.
playground for now, but I mean, he still have a lot to learn, and he still have a lot to mature about it, all of the cars. But he holds a good place. You have a good thought about it.
Yeah.
And he holds a good place as we speak. So
No, that's one of the things I've been thinking about. Is Bottas is now in a position where he could move to Ferrari. We saw recently as 2018, another Finnish driver, Kimi Räikkönen, of a bit more age, go back to Ferrari. From the Renault family, kind of thing. So, I don't know. That's honestly the only other place I could see him other than going to a different engine manufacturer.
Well, a lot can happen. I mean,
or Haas.
Contracts are contracts.
They can.
And on these kind of deals, money talks. You never know who's gonna grab it. He holds a good place.
Yeah.
He's on the top 10. So.
Yeah.
And I mean, he has been there for a while, for a couple races. So we'll see.
Yeah. No, another one I want to talk about is McLaren, because they're my team, McLaren. I mean, I love Red Bull. They're my team for, winning. If I, don't want to be depressed all the time. But my real team.
I love them all. I mean, it's just the sounds of the cars.
Yeah,
are amazing. I go there for the sounds of the cars, and I mean.
Yeah. Well, they're not V10s, but they're fine.
Well, that's fine. Just the noise that they make. It makes me happy.
But McLaren's my team. They won the championship the year I was born. I gotta root for McLaren, and they've been on the up and up for a couple of years now. And since the beginning of the season, they started the season running in dead last. I mean, literally 19th and 20th. I mean, there was retirement, so I don't know, but literally dead last. And now they are scoring points semi-regularly. Lando Norris, who apparently wasn't feeling well this weekend, managed to invert the qualifying results. So they qualified. Pull it up here. They qualified. Where is it? 9th and 11th. So Lando Norris getting kicked out of Q2, and Daniel Ricciardo getting into Q3, but not really doing all that great. Just ahead of Mick Schumacher. But in the race, Lando was able to come back and actually finish in P8 for the team, just ahead of where his teammates started. And Daniel Ricciardo slumped all the way down to P12. So there is a weird thing going on with McLaren where they're able to keep their pace during the race, but I believe Lando is just a bit better in the race than Daniel is. Daniel's still...
You have a good point there. So.
Yeah, he's... I mean, he did have a bad year with the car last year, even though he did get a win at Monza. We did see him, get lapped by Lando in the same car.
Yeah, I mean, same car. But we got a good point there.
It's a bit better this year, though.
It's a little bit better.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they going to move up, or if they're still holding the positions at least. So.
But yeah, I mean, I think they're doing way better. I mean, they are other than Mercedes themselves, best Mercedes-powered team. So they are powered by Mercedes. They don't really have any kind of affiliation with Mercedes, though. There's not really... it's just they have their engine, and they don't really talk about it.
They don't talk about it. So yeah, they borrow their engine, and that's
they have their own drivers, and they don't really...
Well, they have to borrow an engine from somewhere,
Right.
Right. It happens to be Mercedes. It could have been Porsche or...
Aston Martin. Aston Martin is doing a bit better. I think they started off really on a bad foot. I mean, Sebastian Vettel with COVID, missing the first 2 rounds, only getting in Australia. And... I mean, Lance Stroll being Lance Stroll. The Battle of the Canadians seems to be raging on, even though they're not getting any points. Lance Stroll and Nicholas Latifi. Latifi, though, beating his teammate.
They were talking about him today, so which is good. So he's still pretty low, but
yeah, P15.
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah,
anything could happen. I mean, sometimes they're in 15, but I mean, we'll see next week how they're gonna play again.
I do want to see Aston Martin doing well because that used to be Racing Point, and Racing Point before 2021, they were basically a Mercedes. It was just a Mercedes painted pink. It was the pink.
It was
Pink
a
Mercedes.
pink Mercedes.
And Lance Stroll was able to get pole. Stroll was on pole in Turkey. But ever since then, a couple things happened. Sergio Perez got his first win. And then it sort of just died out. The team rebranded to Aston Martin. Sergio went to Red Bull, which seemed like, I mean, obviously that's a great deal for Sergio, but at first Sergio didn't have a seat.
Yeah,
It was thanks to Red Bull having a seat.
Have a seat.
Right.
Yeah.
So Aston Martin, I think, has gone into the season with a lot of hype. Like, oh, they were like one of the first people to like launch their car and everything like that. Like, this is what we're going to be racing, and everyone really was rallying around them. They were powered by Mercedes. It's great, and I mean, it's kind of, I think, thanks to upgrades and this crazy season where people can't really get their car straightened out, that they aren't dead last. They have a 4-time world champion racing for them, Sebastian Vettel, just missing out on points, P11, behind Yuki Tsunoda, who got 1 point for AlphaTauri. So AlphaTauri is beating Aston Martin, and AlphaTauri is good, but I mean, I think that Aston Martin going in with such hype should be aiming higher than
it should be at this point.
AlphaTauri, which is Red Bull's B team. It's their rookie team. Kind of thing. I mean, that's all I really have to say. I mean, Latifi. We'll talk about Williams for a sec. Latifi actually beat Albon this weekend. Albon, with a pretty good slew of things, he got points in Australia after really. I mean, he went the whole race without changing tires. The whole race until the last lap.
Last lap,
he changed tires, so he didn't get a penalty, and then he finished P10 and got 1 point.
We got 1 point.
Yeah, so that was really good for him. I mean,
it was a good strategy.
Yeah.
He had there.
And his hair, he dyed his hair red. So the next,
the next race was called.
it faded out.
It faded out.
And so this is actually a funny story I wanted to talk about. The dye faded out, and in Imola he didn't do so well. He didn't get points, so he put the dye back in for Miami, and he finished P9.
P9, so he got points. So he got back in the game in a race.
Yeah. So I think he dyed his hair again this week. I wouldn't not dye my hair at that point, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So he should keep the dye, the head dyed for for a while.
I'm not
if
too.
He wants to win, so.
Yeah. I think he found a really good home at Williams. The only issue is, I think, because of all the upgrades, I haven't really been catching up on the Williams upgrades. But I would say, I mean, he did lose a little bit of practice time to the young driver. They're required to have a young driver at least 2 times in a year do a practice.
Do a practice. Okay.
Yeah, and so they elected to have him do it in Albon's car. And so he missed out a little bit of practice. But so did Sergio, and Sergio did well, and so did, I believe it was Guan Yu Zhou that missed out some practice as well. But he ended up retiring. But Alex finishing last. So maybe he didn't buy the right product.
The right product for the hair. So.
Maybe he bought some Spanish version.
He has to buy the burgundy color or something like that next time.
Yeah. But I thought that was interesting. But Albon, I think P18, last place, not great, but still a long season to go. Williams, I think, is on an upward trend, but still the slowest.
Well, they're still there, right?
They're still there.
They're still racing the next time.
They're
they still have
still there.
The 20 racers, so...
Yeah. No, but, I mean, I think they have a good leadership now. It's no longer owned by the Williams family for, I believe, this is the second year they're not owned by Williams, by Frank and his daughter William. But the new ownership, brought in new leadership and new team members and everything like that. They have a really big partnership with Mercedes. Toto Wolff, the team principal of Mercedes. Right. actually works really closely with them and actually used to be in the team. So, yeah, I don't see them going any further than they are. And I mentioned this in the beginning of the season to Chris. I forgot what episode it was. I think it was the first episode. Where every team wants to do better, but for every team that does better, somebody has to do worse.
To do worse, of course.
Right.
I mean, always like that. For someone to finish in first, someone
has to do it.
Finish last.
Yeah. Someone has to do it.
There's 20 cars. I mean, they cannot put 20 cars in first place.
Right.
I mean, it's always that, and always goes to who does the better time.
Right.
And who encounters less troubles. I mean,
true.
I mean,
there were significant traffic issues.
Yeah.
I believe in the final corner because it's sort of like sort of bottlenecks.
I mean, at least today we didn't see much of crashes in terms of crashes.
Yeah, I mean, all the issues seem to be just
mechanical. So.
Yeah, and that's all we can hope for. We don't want to see any heavy crashes.
Yeah.
We did see a little bit of contact, front wings.
Well, it was a modest race. I mean,
clean race. I will say, yeah, you're right. Clean race.
Clean race.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's all I have to say. Just the Spanish Grand Prix. There's not much that goes on. I will say that this is going to be a race, much like last year we looked at Monaco because Lewis didn't do well and Max won the race, and that's when it swept because Lewis was leading and then Max
jumped on.
So.
Yeah, well, I mean, Max has been pretty hyper on winnings.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
if you can continue winnings, I mean, you might finish with a good position after
he's leading. He's leading the championship
right now. But
yeah,
I would say at the end of the season, we probably get a good position there. I mean, he'll probably be the leader or not. We'll see. It was still too early in the season to judge.
We're way early in the season to judge. I mean, right now it's Max and Leclerc, and then a little bit further down it's Sergio and I believe Carlos Sainz. Or no, it's Russell.
Yes. George Russell.
And then Sainz. I believe that's the order. I don't have it pulled up here yet, but it's still really early to judge. This is a significant turning point now, though, because it's now no longer Leclerc missing out on a couple points and finishing in 6th instead of 3rd. It's now he missed out on a win, 25, potentially 26 points.
Now he has to make sure he has to focus on finishing the races. No
Yeah.
matter what position he is, to retire a quarter of the race, I mean, it was a little bit early. I know there's mechanical issues there with the car, and it happens like that.
It just can't happen very often. That's
very often. And I mean, now if he keeps, they have to get it straight, the car straight, to run the 60 laps or 66 laps, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So from first to finish, I mean, it wouldn't be fair for a man to start in first, leading the first car of the race, and then have to get up.
Yeah.
It's just disappointing for the fans.
I mean, really leading. I mean,
I'm sure he has a lot of fans out there that those very disappointed from him leading to get out the race.
Both drivers have pressure on them, and this is what I'm going to leave you listeners and viewers out there with, is both Max and Leclerc have gone back and forth, and it's pretty clear now that this season is going to be about them. I think there could be a potential third person involved. I think it will be Russell or Perez. Sainz is great, but I think Ferrari's going to be pretty quick to say, just help Leclerc, please.
Don't help Leclerc.
Yeah.
He probably going to need the help.
Just help him out
first.
Don't try any. Don't be a hero. Just help your teammate. Red Bull seem to be kind of quick with it. They're already telling him to give away a win to Max.
Right.
So it just depends, I think. Russell is clearly just beating Hamilton now. So I think Mercedes will make the clear and conscious thing. Yes, Lewis, you won 6 titles with us. But it's, he's doing better than you.
He's doing better than you. Let him jump in
Yeah.
and win. So one time or so.
But the two protagonists that we have now are Leclerc and Verstappen. And Verstappen has one thing on it, and he both hasn't won constructors for Red Bull. He won the title last year, but that wasn't the constructors title. not too important. People don't necessarily remember that title. You know, like, for instance, Kimi Räikkönen won in 2007. But McLaren won the Constructors. They were disqualified, but they won the Constructors. That kind of thing. No one really remembers the Constructors. They only remember the drivers.
The drivers.
Because that's who you root for, is the driver.
Yeah.
So he has that, and then also he won last year. Why not this year? You know what I mean? Like, do it again.
Do it again.
And the way he did it, if you remember, you remember, right?
Right.
How, you know, when he won, it was on the very last lap. He just managed to take the lead from Hamilton after a safety car. The race director made the call to, you know, speed up the safety car process so that they could finish the race racing, and effectively, there's a bug here, effectively manufacture the final.
It was kind of.
They were like,
I find it like it was fabricated.
Yeah, I mean, even Lewis on the radio was like, "This is being manipulated."
Yeah.
And look, I was rooting for Max.
I mean,
but I do feel for him.
It could have been.
Yes. In my opinion, Max has that on his mind. He's like, I'm world champion. There's number one on my car because I'm world champion. There's an expectation to win.
To win, yes.
And he's won every single time he's seen that.
And then again, too much confidence of being number one could be killing him.
I don't think
points.
I don't think he's necessarily that guy. I think he's always trying to push himself. I don't think he's 120.
You think he's pushing himself every time to the limit to win,
yes,
to the finish line?
Yes, but that's every guy. That's all of them. I think Max is not too cocky to be like, I got this. And the same thing as Lewis too. I mean, Lewis has over 100 wins, more than anybody else in the history of the sport. I don't think he's ever gone out there and said, I'm Lewis Hamilton, 8-time world champion, over 100 pole positions, over 100 wins. I got this. No, like, he genuinely, like, first lap, he got back on track, he's like, let's just save the engine, guys, let's retire. And they're like, no, keep going.
Keep going, right?
And he finished in points. He finished, pretty well.
Yeah.
So, I don't think, world champions are built that way. I think they are built to say, great, I won those races, I didn't win this one because it didn't happen yet. So let's focus on this one. So I think he is genuinely not cocky. I think he knows who he is and that he can do it.
He can do it, yeah.
And is confident, which can help or hurt.
Yeah, confidence is sometimes it can hurt him.
Yeah.
Too much confidence
could
hurt him, and lose points by that. But that's all to us to witness.
Right.
On a future races to come.
Right. So that's Verstappen's thing, and that's mild. Honestly, it's not too bad to overcome. Plenty of people have, won a world championship, and then not won them, and then started winning them again. Lewis Hamilton's one of them.
Yeah.
Michael Schumacher's another. But it always is nice to be a repeat. Yeah, and get them while you can.
While you can, while you're still young.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at Fernando Alonso. He got 2 in a row, and then he went to McLaren, nearly got another one. Didn't happen. Went to back to Renault. Didn't really happen. Went to Ferrari. Almost happened a couple times.
Yeah.
And then he ended up being...
That's how it happens. And
he only still has 2. So
still has 2.
You got to get him when you can,
Yeah.
Leclerc has a little bit less pressure because he hasn't done it yet.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, oh yeah, he's future world champ. But he hasn't proven that he can do it yet, so if he doesn't do it...
What I like Alonso is the experience. So the science and all that. They've been more experienced than anybody else.
Yeah.
And that experience sometimes can make it happen.
Yeah. But you got to admire Russell, first year in that car. I mean...
no, Russell is doing good.
I mean, you didn't see in 2020, but he filled in for Lewis because Lewis had COVID. And he nearly won the race. Being too tall for the car and everything.
Yeah.
So... he's a great driver.
He's a great driver, and you see it today. At some point, he was leading it. So, again, it's anything can happen in any race.
Right.
I mean, Verstappen is winning now, and he's the top leader now. But
the key thing change. The key thing is consistency. We saw George actually second in the championship at one point because he was just consistent. He's still consistently top 5.
Top 5, yeah.
And Max is leading now because he's consistently winning. The only time he hasn't won is when his car breaks down.
Yeah.
every time he's raced this year and saw that checkered flag at the end, he has been first.
First, yeah.
So he has it. He just needs the car underneath him to behave itself.
Yeah.
Leclerc has a bit better of a temperament, I think, than Max. Max is getting better, but Leclerc can keep his head a lot. You know, if someone passes him, it's not like the end of the world. He'll make it happen again. We've seen that a couple times with Max. You know, Max will pass him, and he's just right back on him, and he manages to pass him back, and they go back and forth. And he manages to keep us cool. Because I don't think he has that pressure yet of a world champion. You know what I mean? I think I think the only pressure he does have, and again, this is what I'm going to leave everyone on. The only pressure he does have is that Ferrari haven't won a championship since 2007.
Yeah, that could build a lot of pressure.
Exactly.
So between the drivers, they want
several
to win so badly, and
yeah. You want to be the guy.
You want to be the guy. You want to be the winner, and if you pressure yourself too much, it's hard to happen.
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes if you relax a little bit, and that's probably the key for Verstappen. He relaxes a little bit. He does his game.
Yeah.
He has a game going, and he has been succeeding with the game that he puts out there.
Yeah.
And you see Verstappen sometimes in third, fourth. You can fall to fourth or fifth place, but he ends up there. So
yeah,
that's all that matters.
But he makes the best of it. I mean,
yeah.
Every time I see Max finish this season, it's always been first. But in prior seasons, maybe not 2021 because he's always battling with Lewis. He's always finished in position. You know,
yeah.
I remember quite recently last year, the Russian Grand Prix. I think he started 10th because of an engine penalty, but he's still right there.
He's still right there.
He still finished on the podium.
Still on the podium, yeah.
You know, next to Lewis, and Lewis thinks he has this great lead now, and here's Max.
Here's Max backing up. You know, back up there. So.
Right. I think that's playing a bit more on Charles's mind. It's going to start playing on him more as he gets through the season. If it stays this close between him and Max, or him and anybody else, that, you know, Kimi Räikkönen was the last one to do it, and he only won by 1 point in 2007. Before him was Schumacher, and Schumacher went 5 years in a row.
5 years, oh yeah.
2000 to 2004.
It was a big event for Schumacher at that point, and he's a great driver.
Yeah.
I have to admit.
Yeah. He wants to be the guy to do it. He's seen, you know, Felipe Massa just narrowly miss it in 2008 to Lewis Hamilton. He's seen, who else? He's seen Fernando Alonso come through and nearly do it a couple times. Didn't win a title for Ferrari. He's seen Sebastian Vettel, his former teammate, come through. Yeah, he's been able to win titles with other teams, but not for Ferrari.
Not for Ferrari.
So he.
Yeah, that's all. Again, I believe the pressure is there. So for Ferrari people, I believe that they eager to win.
They have a world champion again.
To get this champion, and they will probably pressuring themselves too much.
Well, it's a big team
and
to get
and their drivers as well. So it's. If there's pressure there, of course, it's going to be hard and going to be tough to compete and to beat that pressure into the number 1 and number 2 podium right there. So
right, no, it's a tough team to be at, Ferrari, because it's not like a McLaren who have been around for a while or a Red Bull who are fast and never really have too many issues. It's Ferrari. It's the first ever Formula One team, or the oldest ever rather. So, you know, they have more wins than anybody else. They have more history than anybody else. So to be a champion, even just once for them.
It will be great. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's won at Monza. He's won at Spa. He's won many times this year. He's now several-time race winner for Ferrari.
For Ferrari.
He wants what's next. He wants the title.
He wants the title.
And I think he deserves it. I hope he gets it.
Yeah.
If not this year, soon.
It's always next season.
It's always next season. So I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Next week is Monaco. We will definitely see you then because it is a big weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I hope you guys are enjoying.
Next weekend is what? Labor Day.
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day
weekend. Yeah.
Always confuse the two. Memorial Day with Labor Day.
Yep.
To me, it's
the first
day off.
It's the start of summer, and then Labor Day is the end of summer.
Well, that's for me. It's a day off. So.
We will certainly not be taking a day off. We'll be doing a podcast for Monaco because it's gonna be a weekend.
Well, maybe next week we can do a three-way interview. So
Interview?
into the program.
Yeah?
With Chris and I. And
Yeah.
we'll see.
We'll bring Lucky
We'll
in.
bring
have the dog.
Lucky in. You're gonna bring everybody.
We're going to
so-
need a bigger couch.
Well, I had a great time today with you, Danny. Was good.
Yeah,
I
me
mean,
too. This is fun.
This is JJ and my son Daniel. So yeah, I had a great time with you.
Yeah. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. Definitely go ahead and follow us. All the stuff is down below. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow my dad on Instagram. He does cool honey stuff
Yeah.
with bees. So if you're into bees and nature and stuff.
Probably you're gonna be seeing me on YouTube as well. So
Yeah.
who knows? We're probably gonna do some record YouTube videos about bees, and
There you
I
go.
probably put bees on my neck or something to be famous. Who knows? Everybody can do.
All right. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. And we'll see you in, hopefully you'll hear us
Yeah.
next time.
Yep. We'll be here.
Thank you.